Thank you all for being here today. I'm honored and humbled to have received the unanimous support of my Democratic and independent colleagues in the State Assembly to be the next Speaker. Exactly 1 year ago last week, I was sworn in as an Assembly member representing the people of the 46th District. My service began in a historic year where the legislature was called upon to make very difficult choices forced on us by a global fiscal crisis. I had intended to continue my service in a capacity other than as Speaker, but ultimately decided to run after a significant number of my colleagues asked me to accept their draft for Speaker. California continues to face an enormous challenge, and I believe that any Californian who's called upon to service must answer that call with enthusiasm and dedication worthy of our state. I'm grateful and humbled by the confidence of my colleagues who've asked me to shoulder the awesome responsibility of helping to guide our state through these stormy times. My first, last, and only consideration is to serve the people of California as we address the fiscal matters and the structural issues facing our state. Obviously, the budget is going to be a major priority for this year as we're staring yet another $20 billion deficit in the face. But we can't solve the budget crisis without also addressing the serious structural issues putting a stranglehold on California government. Reform needs to be a central part to any long-term recovery, and I look forward to working with my Democratic and Republican colleagues in implementing much-needed reforms. I think for all of us, everything in our life experience shapes our views on the world. I got involved in politics when I was 14 years old. Because of a couple of issues, because of issues of funding for community clinics in the community that I grew up in, because of issues of immigration reform, because of issues of fights over fair districting. These were the issues that initially got me interested and involved in politics, and because of the issues of land use decisions that impacted the community that I grew up in. But as you move on, all the things that you're involved in shape your worldview. For about 15 years, I worked in the private sector of the labor movement, and so a good deal of my adult life has been engaged in fighting to create the best quality jobs we can get for the people of California. Now, the way that you do that is creating an environment where both business and workers can thrive. It's got to be a relationship where both are able to succeed. And that's why I'm proud that when I ran for office last year, and quite frankly in my work in the legislature this past year, I've continued to have very good relationships with all the members of the business community that I dealt with during my career in the labor movement, because I think it has to be that balance of the interest of both business and workers in the state of California. And when we face the economic crisis that we do, our number one priority has got to be engaging not just in budget solutions, but in economic recovery so that we can expand the employer and employee base here in the state of California. You know, quite frankly, I didn't initially think that it was what I wanted to do, but in talking to my colleagues and having them come to me, I was convinced that it was the right thing to do, because the only way we get out of this crisis is through a collaborative leadership style. And so I think that when my colleagues called upon me, it was because they thought that I was in a good position to help them work together. This is not an executive post. This is the post of somebody that helps lead a legislative body where each person is elected by a similar number of people. So my job is to help bring people together and then help leverage those ideas as we go down and work with the administration and work with the Senate to serve the interests of the people of California. It is not an easy job, to be sure, especially not in this kind of a crisis, but especially in a crisis like this is when you need to be focused on the essentials of turning the state around.